Welcome back to Doing Business in Asia. And Geoffrey Delhaye, thank you so much for being with us today.
Very happy to be there.
Geoffrey, we know each other for quite some time now. You're French born and bred. You've also gone to, well, one of the business schools in France, where I happened to be program leader. And of course, you then, after graduation, quite a few years ago now, migrated to Singapore and have now, I suppose, about 15 years of experience there in
Almost.
leading sales, people changes across so many different environments.
So I'm quite settled in Asia, and actually what is quite interesting from my perspective is that people believe I'm almost more Singaporean than French right now.
And you're working for a French company,
Yes.
leading French manufacturer of primary bakery products, Bridor, which I remember for the croissants, but I know there's much more in the product range, of course. And you've been traveling, I suppose, well, not only Southeast Asia, but Asia altogether, very much to develop
Yes.
the investment of Bridor in Asia and to drive the sales and really that market establishment.
Yes, exactly.
That's something I would love us to talk a little bit more about. And maybe you can just introduce us to your role and what parts of Asia that spans across.
Okay, sure. So if you look at my experience, I started in a French company in France first, and then after 2 years, actually, I realized that I wanted to go overseas, probably because of my exposure during my business school in France. So I took the opportunity to go for a VIE, which is a special program in France to be able to work overseas. And for 1 year, I worked for a French company. Then they converted my contract into a local contract because they were quite happy with me. And at first, I was mostly focused on Singapore and Malaysia. We can believe that Singapore and Malaysia are different countries. Yes, they are, but they have a lot of things in common. So it was a very good first discovery for me for Asia. I grew up in my business role and took the development of the brand, that French brand, for other territories, including Australia, including New Zealand, including Thailand, including India, and so on. After a few years of doing this company and starting to discover how to develop a distribution network in a different business environment and cultural environments, I got taken over by Bridor, which is the company I'm currently working for. And for this company, I'm in charge mostly of Southeast Asia and South Asia. So Southeast Asia includes a dozen of countries that seems to be the same from some perspective, but they're actually very different. It's a bit like when you are Asian, you can believe that Europe might be the same countries, but actually France, Germany, and Italy are very different in a lot of perspective. And Asia and Southeast Asia is actually the same. Especially when you include South Asia as well, with India, Maldives, Pakistan, Bangladesh, all those countries. So I took responsibility of those countries, traveling extensively. Indeed, I would be doing like sometimes almost 120 trips per year. So you can imagine it would be like 2 to 3 different countries per week, especially before COVID. And I would travel mostly in Southeast Asia, in South Asia, and sometimes also in North Asia to take care of markets that can be like Hong Kong or China for development purposes on some key accounts. So that's what I did, and that's what I'm still doing now. And I'm happy with the end of COVID, we can start to travel again. So I was supposed to be in Malaysia last week, but you know, one member of my team got COVID, so we had to cancel it. And yeah, so that's what I'm doing. So why we've been focusing on those territories, when you look at Southeast Asia and South Asia, it's almost 1/3 of the global population. They are developing countries, so the purchasing power is not very strong. But yet, you have a big mass market there to grab. And then also, the population here has a growing interest in bakery. And there is also a very strong trend in the products that you actually manufacture. So for us, it's a key strategy, countries and areas that we must target to make sure that we can actually sustain the growth of the company. And the company has a very big ambition, reaching 2 to 3 billion euro of turnover within the span of the next 5 years. Since the startup of the company, we have been growing by 30% every year, and that's a trend that we want to maintain. So we have to go and grab those interesting markets.
Interesting. Yeah. And so, can you tell us more about your experience as a new business leader for these markets? Because of course you've really gone in there anew, both for the company and possibly for yourself as well at some moment in time. So how does that build on your really extensive experience at this moment in time in Singapore?
Yes. So what is very important, I would say, and critical to learn when you are discovering those two markets is that people and the way of doing business are very different. Adaptability will be very important. You need to be open to learnings. You need open to discovering. You need to be open to understanding. You need to be also, I think I would say, humble. You need to have a lot of modesty, and you will be respectful. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because I don't know what would be your audience, but you know, when you grow up in a European environment or a Western environment, you believe that the way you are doing things is the right way. Why? Because you know you're learning since you are young. You believe that the values that you carry are the right ones. You believe that the way you are doing business is the right ones. You believe the way you interact with people is the right ones. And you believe that what you can understand from the people you are interacting with is going through your own filter, and that if someone is smiling, you believe that it's the right approach and that you are maybe winning the case already. But actually, it can be wrong for some population or for some cultures. So I think what's the biggest learning experience and the learning curve is for the first few years, you have to get hit in the face a lot of challenges, making a lot of mistakes, and I have done thousands, and the thousands of mistakes actually helped me to grow and to understand better how to now fit into the market and to the business environment rightfully.
So you probably have a bit of a toolkit to manage those cultural differences and similarities. What are the main tools that you would have in that box?
So the main toolkit, I would believe, are experience, time, acceptance, assimilation, curiosity, and frankness. I think this one, with all those tools, you won't be wrong, because of course by experience you can't gain experience from one day to another. So, but during your experience gaining time, I would say you have to try to assimilate as much as possible, and you have to try to be as curious as possible. Curiosity will always be a winning tool in your daily life, I would say. Be curious, of course, for the culture that you are trying to explore. Be curious for the business that you are working with, because the more you are curious, the more you will be learning. And be curious also with the people you will be interacting with. So, you know, we always say that when you want to convey a message, 93% of the message you're going to convey will not be because of the words that you are using, but it will be because of the tone that you are using and the body language that you are going to use. And the tones and the body language that you are using in Asia or in Europe can be very different. So this one you have to learn, you have to accept to change, and then if you are frank with yourself, I believe that you will be good at it and you will be capable of being successful with the different people that you will be meeting.
There's so much about openness, isn't there? Look, we're both in the business of working with different cultures and also entering new markets.
To enter a market, I think you need to follow a plan. This is important, but a plan that should be also adaptable. So I wrote down this sentence of Picasso. He stated, "Our goals can only be reached through a vehicle of a plan in which we must fervently believe and upon which we must rigorously act. There is no other route to success." So basically it means, of course, in life you need luck, but if you want to grab that luck, you need to work toward this direction. Okay, so you need to work hard and you need to plan. But once again, in Asia, things are a bit different. So you need to plan, but you need to plan with a lot of flexibility. So why am I saying this? Because when you have a Western approach, you have a plan, then you will stick to this plan for 5 years. It's your long-term plan. No matter what happens, you try to stick to the plan because you believe that's the route to where you want to reach and the goal you want to reach. But when you are in Asia, the business partners that you are going to work with, because usually when you penetrate the market in Asia, you are always working with business partners, they will accept your plan, but then 6 months or 1 year down the road, they will directly change the plan, focusing on what is successful. So look, I'm a French company. I've got this whole portfolio of products. To represent my brands, you need to bring those 30,000 SKUs at least. No, they will focus on 2 SKU after 6 months because they notice that those 2 SKU are ones that can actually grow volumes and help them to penetrate different clients. So you need to be adaptable, and then you need to accept that actually the route that you set at first will be changing, but still focus on a plan that is actually adaptable. So I think the question that you need to ask to yourself when you're penetrating markets will be similar to a lot of other countries, but which partners you want to work with, for which goals, for which route to market, for which positioning of your brand, and with which strategy, and with which team. Of course, you look at the competition as well. Why am I saying this? Because depending on which customers you will be willing to target, does it make more sense to work with a local business partner, or does it make more sense to work with, let's say, a big international distributing partner that has already a presence worldwide? Those people, maybe they will be very good at targeting customers who have managing structure that is mostly Western. Then if you have international business partners that can do the distribution for you with a team of expatriates and a team of locals, then they will have the right person to approach the executive chef that might be Australian, that might be French, that might be British, that might be German. But if you want to target the Cambodian market, for instance, where you will probably do more business with retailers or maybe with little hotels. Yeah, I'm talking about my company. Maybe it would be much better to have a local partners that seems to have a very small structures, but that been on the market for 30 years and that knows everything and that can actually get your products to get inside the country first, which is also very complex in certain countries, you know, because the borders, the regulation, the registration of the products, all of this. So sometimes the route will be very different. So really you have to target the partners according to your objectives and which segment you want to reach. We'll do better business usually when you have a local partners, you know, because the fancy distributors that are foreigners and they come in a new market and they want to also distribute products, they will target only few clients. That's not where the volume is, but that's an easy way to go because of course you are talking with someone who understands you because they are from the same origin, same culture or whatever. So it's much easier to do business at first, but it's not how you're going to penetrate a market very nicely. So what is key is also how to find new ways of doing new distribution without offending or losing your historical distributors. Are you going for private labels? Are you going for new distributors, but you will ask him to target only a segment that the historical distributor is not actually targeting? So all of this is questions that you need to ask and that can help you actually to grow your business.
Have you seen any particular changes due to COVID? Because COVID really impacted, well, globally, but also across Asia at different moments in time and has come and peaked again and again at different moments in time. So is there anything particular that's impacted your work?
Yeah.
And any solutions that you or your headquarters have been able to implement there?
COVID has been a big hit for the company, especially for 2020. Once again, because of the way we are doing business, our strategy was to target mostly F&B activities. Food and beverage activities means hotels, restaurants, and those have been hit like very badly by the COVID, especially in Southeast Asia and in South Asia, where the restrictions in place were very strict and where the international tourists were forbidden for 2 years. So what happens at my personal level, of course, it was a change, especially in terms of management, because my team is a bit spread everywhere in Southeast Asia and South Asia, so I couldn't interact with him on a face-to-face basis. So I wanted to make sure that they understood the new strategy of the company, that they understood that they had to remain active, and I wanted to also make sure that they had still a good mental well-being, I would say. So I would connect with them very regularly through phone calls and video calls. I try to implement also some side activities where we would take a break with a beer or whatever, really to keep the link between the team. And then I will continue to interact with customers as much as possible through video calls and everything. What we set also is a number of tools in the company to help remain connected. So it was mostly softwares that have been acquired by the company to help us to remain connected. And then also one of the biggest change that I did with my team is I told them to stop doing the focus that they had before. So meaning helping our distributors to target all those F&B outlets, but to start looking at new opportunities with different segments of distribution. So retail mostly and online. And actually this strategy has proven to be very successful because 2021, it was still confinement and COVID in Asia. We managed to grow the activity 50% before pre-COVID levels. So we are very happy with the results, thanks to some key accounts. One of the biggest changes also that the company has been facing, it's the supply chain and the forecasting. When you have customers who suddenly stop their orders, and then because the country reopens, suddenly they order again, and so on and so forth, there was a lot of disruption in stock and in demand. So it was like very wavy. And because of that, we had to focus on doing clearance sales. We had to focus on also doing now monthly forecasts, which we were not doing before. Before we would be doing 6 months forecast. So now we are doing monthly forecasts to make sure that we are very close to the demand of our customers and the factory can plan accordingly. And also, after the end of COVID in Europe, there was a very strong disruption for the factory, because the demand skyrocketed. All the distributors in Europe and in Asia started to actually replenish their stock level to be able to respond to the demand, the increasing demand. And our stock actually went down tremendously because we didn't replenish our stock in 2021 because of what happened in 2020. We were too worried of, having to destroy so much stocks, because that's what happened. Our shelf life on the products is only 1 year. So if the products are not being consumed, then we have to destroy them. So it was a big hit for the company. And so the company took 2 main focus. One was to do a 80-20 strategy. So focusing on the 80% of the revenues that are generated by the 20% of our key items. So then the rest, we slowly started to abandon them. And also cut down the production of the products that have a very strong industrial complexity to make sure that the factory can reply to the demand for the key items where actually the core of the business is being done, actually the croissant. So, and of course, we also had a lot of support from the top management to be able to communicate with our customers to implement this new strategy, because we had to tell them, sorry, there is a lack of availability, so you're going to have only those items for the time being. And for some customers also, we had to cut down the quantity of supply. So top management help us to communicate, give us some letters and communication. Even in Asia, I think it's important for them to receive this kind of letters because, in Asia, the concept of giving face is very important. And so when they receive a message from the CEO or from a general manager, they believe they are important and the message can be conveyed much more easily.
Yeah.
That's what, so COVID was a challenge.
Absolutely. So with all of this in mind, what would you recommend future Asia leaders to pay attention to?
Asia is not like our democracies in the Western world, I would say. So they can take decisions that are much stricter, much faster, and sometimes they can also take decisions that will lock the country for whatever reason. We have seen it in Myanmar, where I've lost my distribution from one day to another. The partners that was actually European had to close down activities and lost millions of investments. Why? Because there was political instability. Where it come from, we don't really know. So with all of this in mind, I think for future leaders, they need to understand that what is important is to know exactly what's happening in the country. So I think it's important, if you are leaders, to of course have a team of people that are very down to earth and strongly attached to the country and knowledgeable with the country where they are, or they are in charge of. This one is very important. How do you achieve that? You find people who are actually knowledgeable with the country, can be locals, can be foreigners, of course. But if they are foreigners, I will strongly recommend that those foreigners have an attachment with that countries, either personally or personally. So that will help. So it means they are married with someone locals, they have kids with someone locals. Then it means usually they can speak the local language, they understand the politics, they understand the in and out of the country.
Look, Geoffrey, thank you so much for this. Maybe just a last point, because of course we know there's so much going on in terms of climate change, and that business activities have an environmental impact. What are the expectations of your business partners, of course, in particular, again, around Asia, and how do you actually answer to them?
Okay, so in Asia, the concern about global warming is slightly less, I would say, except maybe in the Pacific region, but in Southeast Asia and South Asia, it's not one of their priority concern yet. Their priority concern is more like how to get out of poverty, I would say. But yet, we are working with clients who are really aware about those impact that the business can have on the global environment. So our answer to that is actually the CSR policy of the company. We are trying to reduce as much as possible our waste, the waste in terms of production, but also in terms of water and electricity, with plenty of engagement from the company. So we signed the UN Global Compact in 2014. We are part of the EcoVadis classification since 2015, and we do constant monitoring of the usage of resources. So that's one point. We do also a lot of waste management. So it means 98% of our waste management in the factory is recycled. Usually we fill like local farms or whatever with the products that we don't use. And the water that we are using is also 100% recycled. So that's all of this. And we're also changing the lighting with LED lighting, so there is less CO2 consumption and so release, I would say, and so on. But I think in the next 5 to 10 years, one of the key objectives of Bridor will be to reduce the consumption of energy by cutting down the supply chain. We have already cut down the supply chain when it comes to our own sourcing. So we are mostly sourcing locally, close to our factories, and our factories are in Europe. In terms of ingredients and so on, it's almost 100% that is sourced within the local or the regional environment. But when it comes to production, of course, then we have to ship it to Asia, to the rest of the world. And we understand that there is some customers who have a concern about it. And so they've been asking us to actually start looking at developing factories in Asia to be close to them. So we actually reduce the impact on the environment when it comes to shipping containers that are actually frozen. So we need energy to keep the products cold, and we need energy to ship the product. So that's what we are trying to do.
Geoffrey Delhaye, Regional Sales Manager for Bridor, the French manufacturer of premium bakery products. Wonderful to have listened to you, and thank you so much for your insights that you have shared.
Thank you for your time, Gabrielle. Hope to see you soon.